when you hear the words roller coaster? Reaction do you have? Do your shoulders tighten up? The butterflies fill your stomach? You know what? Lately, at this stage of my life, I have become repulsed by the idea of getting aboard some little basket or box that is about to speed off into the unknown, hurling you up and down in twisting circles and drops, shaking your bones like a can of beans. Okay? Let me be clear on this. I do not like roller coasters. Okay? I used to like going on them. I used to enjoy the challenge, okay? And every summer, it's commercial after commercial, you know? We've got the new Boa, and now we've got the new Viper, and now we've got the new Dragon Slayer, and whatever it is. This ride, we guarantee, will bring you one step closer to death than all the other rides that you have. This is the one. This is the big one. No one will ever accomplish this again. We're not sure it even works, but come ride our way. They try and build on, you know, the music is scary and exciting. They try and build on, you know, this idea that this is at least something we can control. You know, we've seen other people get off, you know, some get off in better conditions than others. But we know that people live, you know, they survive this ordeal, and they go on to, you know, write checks, go to work, eat another meal. This other stuff. And, you know, I'm very opinionated about roller coasters. I've decided to make my whole sermon today about roller coasters. No. And this may or may not have anything to do with the fact that I got sick at the fair the other week, okay? I was riding the, I don't even remember the name of it, abduction. Alien abduction. That's the ride. I got sick, okay? In front of everyone. It was daylight, you know. My daughter had talked me into riding the rides with her, you know. She had the bracelet, and of course wanted me to get the bracelet so we could ride on these rides one after another. And like an idiot, I decided that I would have egg rolls at home. I threw them in the microwave, you know. I cooked them in half a minute, which is about the patience I have to get to my food. And I downed them because we were in a hurry to get to the rides. I downed these egg rolls, and we were on the rides. You know, I live right by the fair, you know. So we were starting the rides, and you know, I said to her, well, to be safe, I just had egg rolls. Let's just do a safe ride. And you know, we did a couple of the little kiddie rides, you know, and then I said, I think I'm good. Let's do the bigger ones, and we did the alien abduction. And that's the one where it's, you know, it's a giant saucer, you know, it's a giant bowl with a top on it, you know. And you walk in this thing like a dope, you know. You get in this thing, and then you stand against the back wall. And, you know, I'm thinking, no restraint system, what's this all about, you know? There's not a single belt for this thing. I'm thinking, why in the world aren't they giving me something to hold on to? And then, you know, it starts its little spinning, and I'm saying, okay, not too bad. And then it goes into a high fevered spin, okay? And I see kids starting to inch up on the wall, and go sideways and stick their arms and their legs like this, and they're staying there like Velcro, okay? Now, I'm a little heavier than most of the little kids that were on the ground. So it took quite a bit longer for me to come off the ground. But stuck I was stuck. And you know, I tried to lift my head, and it can't even do that. You know, it's like total, like 12 G's. Had to be 12 G's. You know? So don't tell me about you're a pilot or anything like that. I don't want to hear anything, you know. It's nothing compared to this thing. So I get off, you know, the ride, and Sarah, my daughter, you know, she's running to the next one almost. Well, she happens to get halfway to the next one, and she turns around, and she sees her father bent over, hurling, you know, dry heaves, you know, that kind of thing. Eventually, there was egg roll, okay, but it's all this for your birthday, Jenny. So I don't know if that has anything to do with my thoughts on roller coasters. Maybe it was also the fact that I got sick at the last Kings Island visit I went to for the ride. So I tend not to eat very well at the fair. Tend not to. But I don't like being yanked around anymore, you know? I'm not spry or young anymore, and you know, hearing bones crack and move, and, you know, all that stuff. I've got a neck that likes to remain stabilized, you know. I'm not much into these rides anymore. And so I admit it, I'm afraid of roller coasters. I'm afraid of being shaken to pieces. I'm afraid of losing my cookies. Okay, I admit it, I'm scared. Call me a wimp, okay? I'm afraid of roller coasters. This fear that I have has reached the point where it's stopped me from trying any new coasters. I have no motivation to try the newest, craziest coaster. You know, I watch those commercials and I spew. You know, no, I don't spew. I kind of breathe. I breathe rage. You know, you're not going to get me on the thing. Okay. So my daughter, after this happened at the fair, she's, "I'll ride, Dad. I'll ride the rides. You know, you just watch." I had the bracelet. So my wife showed up, and I tried to see if they would transfer the bracelet rights to my wife. So no longer am I able to enjoy free ride day at the fair. You know, my fear has limited me when it comes to fairs, amusement parks, and roller coasters. But you know, guess what? We all are afraid of something. We have fears in some realm that limit or even cripple us at times. And I noticed you can even get into a pattern with your thinking that you can become afraid of the next thing. You don't even know what it is, but you have this fear that the other shoe's going to drop. You know? And those of you who have been in abusive situations or relationships, those of you who have been through abusive work situations, or have been through tragedy or some sort of trauma, you can become limited and even crippled by the thought that something bad is going to happen. And it can hover over you. So fear can be our #1 enemy. There's a recent study that was done nationwide, random, by Chapman University, which is in California. And over 1,500 people were asked the question, what are your biggest fears? What things do you fear most? And they gave them like a list of 80 categories, 80 fears. And I wanted to put up some of the fears that were mentioned. This is not necessarily a comprehensive list of all the top fears, but I wanted to show you the results. I'll read this off because I don't think you probably can't read it where you're at. But the #1 fear, anybody guess? You've heard this before, what is it? Public speaking. And it's interesting, Noelle raised her hand, but I didn't mean to call on you, I'm sorry. You know, it's true, and you know, people like me who, you know, who aren't that afraid of it. We're kind of quizzical about this, but I know so many people who are. If I stopped and I said I need someone to come forward and take over, and I went and I just called out random people, all of you, a lot of us would want to run, okay? Most of us would probably want to run to the back door, but there are some in here who would probably want to run to the microphone, okay? But public speaking is one of the top fears of all adults. Fear of being humiliated, make a mistake, fail, fear of saying the wrong thing, whatever it is. The second one you see, the darker bar, is fear of heights. There were 24% of the people who said that's one of their fears. The next one, bugs, snakes, or other animals. And I have to think that snakes make up the vast majority of that critter list. Raise your hand if you have a fear of snakes. I mean, an unusual fear of snakes. Well, snakes are unusual, so I guess it's legitimate. Okay. Next one listed there is drowning. 18% have a fear of drowning. And who's afraid of drowning in here? Okay. Good thing there's no water right now. And then blood or needles, 16% said they were afraid of that. Now remember, this won't add up to 100 because these are the top fears. They listed more than one. Claustrophobia, fear of being in tight places. Yeah, I know some people who just hate amusement parks for that reason, or they hate elevators for that reason, or traffic. 14% of these people said they were afraid of flying, which is in the middle of the chart there. 11% said they had a fear of strangers. What might happen with strangers? This could well be 9/11, ISIS, or terrorism related. Good chance. And I'm not saying these fears are illegitimate and not warranted. And then this is a weird one. The light bar below strangers. 9% of the people have a fear of zombies. You know that kids have gone through this zombie craze in the last few years, and I'm not sure how wholesome and healthy it is, to be honest with you. But a lot of people say they're actually afraid of zombies. I hate to tell them, you know, that Jesus brings people back from the dead. Just a different state than that. And then 8% that said they're afraid of darkness. I would think that would be higher, because I don't like being in the darkness. And here's something everybody really needs to finally come to grips with and acknowledge. 7% said they're afraid of clowns. Okay? 7% they're afraid. You know, I grew up afraid of clowns, and I didn't feel like I was allowed to say that, because clowns are everybody's party entertainment, you know? And Jenny, I don't know if you had clowns yesterday, but clowns are... Okay. This is probably just not people who eat at the fast food places, you know. These are kids a lot of kids don't like clowns. They're not funny to them, you know. And then to close this out, 12% say they're afraid, 6% say they're afraid of ghosts. They're afraid of ghosts. So we all have fears, and certain things trigger your fears much more than other people or me. What scares you a lot may not scare others. You might have a particular, one of my fears, and I know it, is as a parent, as a father, I'm afraid of not being able to pay the bills, or losing. That's just more than necessary, much more than necessary, because God has always provided. But that's one of my fears that I have to deal with, and it gets to me sometimes. So we all have to be aware of what makes us afraid. Now here at Walnut Street, we're in the middle of a sermon series looking at Elijah, the prophet in the Old Testament, and how Elijah was building up God's kingdom, and how we each matter because we're part of something bigger than just ourselves, our little world. And we can only build up something bigger when we're facing our fears and acting in trust and faith. And the Bible tells us that even the gates of hell cannot prevail against his church. And boy, do we need to hear that. We need to know that. Because our fears, our insecurities, our little concerns can stop us in our tracks if we're not careful. And so the one thing that does stop us more than anything else is fear. Fear or doubt can keep us from going further. Fear can keep you paralyzed and stuck. Fear can make you run and hide. Fear can drive you like a master. Fear can lead you to settle for less in your life. Fear can lead you to say no when you should have said yes. Or it can make you say yes when you should have said no. Fear can lower your confidence and lower your vision and limit you. Fear can make you sick. You're desperate. Fear can tend to make you want to numb yourself, to use medications or drugs or alcohol or food or work or whatever to keep you numb to your fears. We can be afraid of change, afraid of failure, afraid of rejection by others. That's a big one. We can be afraid of illness or accidents, loss or death. We can even become afraid of success. I can't deal with success. More responsibility, and more expectations from other people. I just can't deal with that. I'd rather have my little world, my little cocoon. So I ask you today, what are you afraid of? What are your fears? You know, it's good to have healthy fear of falling or snakes or even death, you know, that can keep you safe. But many of our fears, or the degree to which we have them, is just toxic. And that's when fear becomes our worst enemy. Fear can wipe out our trust in God. Fear can wipe out our dreams for the future. Fear can wipe out your relationship with your spouse. Fear can poison your life. So that was the case with Obadiah, who was a palace servant to Ahab, the wicked king. Obadiah was a devout believer in God, but when the prophet Elijah asked Obadiah to give Ahab a message to tell the evil king that Elijah wanted to speak with him, Obadiah was seized with fear, just seized by it. He knew that Ahab hated Elijah and everything Elijah stands for. He was afraid that Ahab would kill him, even though he was a servant, because he hated Elijah. So Elijah had a message. God had a message for Ahab. Obadiah was part of the plan to get that message to Ahab, to save Israel from moral corruption and a bad drought. Obadiah was a part of the plan, but fear threatened to derail him. Long story short, Obadiah got himself together and remembered that God is good and that you can trust him. And despite his fear, Obadiah told the evil king, Elijah wants you. Okay? Notice that Ahab was not cured of his fears at that moment. The fear was not taken away. Sometimes we just want to say, Lord, take my anxiety away. Give me peace. That's not how it happened. Okay? He acted in obedience and trust despite his fear of death, of being killed. He went out on a limb. In the presence of his fears, he went out on a limb. And God kept him protected. So we're expected to do the same. God has things in mind for you. Some tasks, some ministries, maybe you to be a messenger to someone else. Sometimes these are little things, you know, like greeting your neighbor, or speaking to someone, or telling somebody how good God is and what he's done for you. And sometimes God asks you to do big, hard, difficult things. Like go be a mission, go on a mission trip, or go risk being fired by speaking what God thinks, or give up something, or let down the addiction. Stop the addiction. No matter what God asks you to do, God equips you for it. He makes impossible things possible. And you can face your fears. And he wants you to act in spite of being afraid. Fear is not a good excuse for obeying God and moving out in trust. You know, think of all the great things that have been done in your lifetime. All the great buildings, the projects, the relationships, the marriages, the families that have been created. All those great things that would have never happened had fear ruled the day. Crippling fear, irrational fear, fear as a master. If you and I are going to be part of building something big, we need to overcome our fears. Fear not is a phrase used throughout the Bible. Fear not. Over 100 times, or don't be afraid. That is a very common phrase used by God and Jesus and angels and prophets and servants of the Lord. Be ye not afraid. Even when God accomplished great things, miracles happened, like the birth of Christ or whenever a resurrection occurred, we became scaredy cats, fell on the ground, you know. You know, we're told to be afraid of the Lord, and that's the fear of the Lord, is being in awe of God and what he can do. But you know what? When we are awed by God's presence and his love, then it dissipates our fears. We don't fear anybody or anything else because we know how great God is. You know, again and again, God reminds us just who He is and tells us, just chill out. Just take it easy. I'll be there. You know, God says to us, this isn't about you, by the way. You're not alone anymore, by the way. You know, it's all about me. God says it's all about me. It's about my plan for your life. And even bigger, guess what? It's about my plan for this community, for this world, for the people that you bump up against. It's about them. God's message in God's kingdom is the bigger picture. And you just happen to be a part of that plan. There's some scripture passages that gives us reassurance. These are just a pittance, a sample. And I'm going to throw them up there. And, I want to remind you. Genesis 15. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Not only does He protect you, but He's got a future. Something big. Number 2, Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Sometimes we fear people. We fear other people, how they're going to react or respond. And we allow it to change us. We put blinders on and we live a half life. We live a life that is weak or inhibited. Fourth one, Proverbs 19. The fear of the Lord leads to life. Then one can rest content, untouched by trouble. Matthew 10 said, don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. That's what Jesus said to me. The next one comes from Luke 12. Don't be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Seventh one from John 14. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I don't give to you the kind of peace this world gives. Don't let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. 1 John 4. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Because fear has to do with punishment or consequences, in other words. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. What is the antidote to fear? It's love. Love and trust. Love of God, love of others. That's what squelches fear. What would lead anybody to lay down their life for another person? Love. That's about the only reason that one would consider doing it. Fighting that fear of being killed. What would cause any parent to rush toward danger, to head into a fire? Love. What's the only thing that allows us to face the very real possibility of rejection by others? Love. In other words, I love you so much, I'm going to take this risk. Whatever happens, I'm in. Love and trust. You must love and trust God more and more each day. You can't wait for fear to go away before you act, or you never will. You have to step out in obedience while you fear. And guess what? God will heal you of the spirit of fear and timidity. You must cultivate the habit of taking small steps of obedience in spite of fear. You must face your fears and step into them as you trust in God. Sometimes it's a slow process. You know, in the treatment business, in the mental health business, there's this treatment modality called systematic desensitization. And that's used typically for patients and clients that have tremendous fear, to the point of phobias. Okay, for instance, if somebody had a phobia about getting into an elevator and they never get into an elevator, here's how you start in treatment. You sit in the comfortable office and you talk to them about elevators. You know, this is what it's like to ride an elevator. This is what happens when you get in, and you've got buttons where you can control the elevator. And you've got air conditioning that keeps keeps you nice and cool, not always. And you've got carpeting below you sometimes. You know, it's really comfortable in the elevator. And usually there's nice people in the elevator. You know, they'll come in and they tend not to look at you, but most of them smell pretty good. And you know, you've got just a few floors in this elevator that we're talking about. You know? It's pretty good. And the lights on, it's nice and bright in there. But that's what you do. That's how you conduct treatment of an elevator phobia. And I have no idea what it's called. It's probably shaftophobia or something like that. But you get in the elevator only after you've gone through these small steps. All right? So if I'm the clinician, if I'm the therapist, I say, okay, we're going to walk outside my office. And this is after talking about elevators for a few weeks. Now we're going to walk outside my office. We're going to look at the elevator. And what I want you to do is, as you're going to the steps, which is way over there, just stop halfway through, stop, and take a deep breath as you look at the elevator, and then go down the steps. And then every single week we do something new. Next week I'm going to go with you, we're going to recite some scripture. Okay? And then the next week we'll recite a couple more scriptures. Then the next week we're going to step toward the elevator 3 steps. Okay? And it may take a year, but this is systematic desensitization. And this is what we have to do with our fears. We slowly turn them over to God, and we walk toward our fears one step at a time. We must embrace the larger vision of what God sees. He wants to build something bigger through you, with your help. He needs you, in fact. That is your purpose. Do not allow fear to shackle you or restrict you. There are so many things this church can do. Things that we haven't even thought of yet. Directions that we could go that we have not gone. We must not allow fear of change, fear of discomfort, fear of rejection. We must not allow our fears to stop us in our tracks. I invite you to receive the communion elements. You're all invited to receive them. It's an open table. Let's spend a few minutes praying, asking God to strengthen us for the road ahead. Let's be in prayer.